Okay, I'm going to show you how to make what I call a hoodic. It's a dicky and a hood combined, which is why I'm calling it a hoodic. And I'm using the new Cindy Wood Loom cowl looms. One is a 70 peg and the other is a 54 peg. And I use the 54 for the dicky part and the 70 for the hood. I've been working with these looms lately to be making hood patterns, and I have another pattern that I will need to be filming, the faux interlock hood, and it's using this same loom set here. I think the oval looms are the same peg count. This is a 1/2 inch gauge. But the thing about this pattern is it's a one size fits all. I have my 1-year-old, I put it on my 4-year-old, myself, my mother, and my stepdad, and everybody it fit. So it's kind of a wonderful pattern that way. All you need is just this. If you want to try to adjust this to another loom, then you need to do the ratio between this loom and this loom and find another brand equivalent to where the ratio is about the same. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to show you how to do the turtleneck part, and then and tell you to get that much done, and then show you how to do the hood part and get that much done, and then it's combining them to finish it. Okay, that's a bit of a trick in the edging around. So we're going to start off with the 54 peg loom. Now I'm using Red Heart with Love, and it uses a whole skein. The red one I made used a whole skein pretty much. And I'll give you the yardage, about 315 yards. So if you're wanting to use another yarn, you'll need about 315 yards, and you'll need it in a worsted yarn weight. So that's how that's going to go. Alright. The first part is easy. It's an E-wrap cast on. And I'm going to be kind of quick with these sections that are pretty self-explanatory. This is not a beginner pattern. This is more like an intermediate advanced, because you are going to need to use a stitch holder for your hood to attach to this loom here. And you're going to be adding stitches back, and you're going to be doing special decreasing and that kind of thing. So something to keep in mind when doing this is that this is not an easy pattern, but it's a really nice pattern to get particular results from. Okay, so the turtleneck part is really easy. Alright, it's like making a cowl that's going to go around your neck, but you definitely want the E-wrap cast on. I would not suggest any other cast on, okay, because it needs to go over your head. Alright, so once we've done that, what you want to do is you want to knit over, and yes, this is a flat knit, and purl one. Alright, so you want to knit one and purl one. And you want to do this all the way around. You want to do this for a total of 30 rows, okay? And I'll tell you right now, in my swatching, 5 rows is an inch, and I needed 6 inches. Now, if you have a longer neck you're dealing with, you can make this longer, or if you want it to be able to fold down, you can make this longer. But this is your turtleneck area. This is the length of your neck, and however long you want it. 30 rows get you 6 inches, okay? So you're just going to do a basic rib stitch of knit one, purl one for 30 rows, okay? All the way around circularly, okay? And that as the turtleneck section. And when you get that done, you set it aside. Now, what I would suggest doing is once you complete your 30 rows, you can choose to cut the yarn, and I've done that, cut the yarn, and then start working on this loom. Okay, you don't need to double up the yarn. Okay, you don't want it too thick or it'll ruin the way the garment hangs. But once you finish your 30 rows of your turtleneck, then I would suggest cutting the yarn, but long enough to where you can weave it in and tie it off so that it doesn't come undone when we attach everything. Okay, so pause the video, get your 30 rows done of knit one, purl one, all the way around for 30 rows. Okay, and there's your turtleneck, and then we'll get started on the hood, and I'll show you how to do the hood section. Okay, this is the hood section. You'll need the 70 peg, okay, and you'll need at least 2 stitch markers to start. And what you want to do is, it's going to be done flat, and I'm going to actually do a Kitchener cast on. And the reason for this is I don't like seams, but you can just do a regular E-wrap cast on and sew the top up if you'd like, if you don't want to do the fancy Kitchener cast on and then tighten it up in the middle and that kind of thing. But that's what I'm doing, okay? But it's up to you entirely. You can do an E-wrap cast on and then just do the row setup like I do, and then just do it for however many rows. But make sure that you're going to need to sew this seam up at the beginning so that you have it. All right. So we're going to count over 10 pegs. This is our starting point here with the black pegs. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Place a stitch marker. All right. Then you're going to take the next peg back, which is your last peg, and you're going to count over 10 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And these are the points where you're going to work a seed stitch. Okay? Let's go this way. Okay. You're going to work a seed stitch. And this will tell you when you start your seed stitch, okay? So again, I'm going to do a Kitchener cast on, and if you've done it enough, it's going to be done in the flat, but it's not going to be really any different. Your setup is still the same, and then you just start knitting flat. So it's really not that different if you've done the sock stuff before. You still need to divide your pegs in half, so I believe it was 34 was my halfway point, but let me make sure. Excuse me, it's 35. Alright, so we want to count over 35 pegs. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me move that up some. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6, 7, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. I want to make sure of this. Okay, yep. Here's our halfway point over here between these 2 pegs. Stick it under, send it through. Alright, remember front to back. Alright, front to back on the pegs. Always the same direction. Alright, you're going to do that all the way over to the other side. Make sure you don't skip the peg. If you need help on this, there is a video link in the patterning below on how to do the Kitchener. Okay, I've got my weave done. Now it's time to do an initial row, and that'll just be a knit As again, this is the setup is exactly the same. No different. Okay, you're back to your starting point. Now, that is the setup is exactly the same as it always is for your Kitchener cast on. Now here's where it's going to work a little differently. At this point you're going to start working flat, but I'm going to work from my side, my first starting point. I'm going to work my way around, stop, and work my way back around. Okay, so I'm going to show you how that's done. I'm going to start off with a knit purl. Remember, I'm doing a seed stitch on the first 10 pegs and the last 10 pegs. Alright, so do my seed stitch, and it's a 2-row repeat. Okay, and you repeat the 2 rows over and over again, and you're going to do that for 90 rows. Alright, so that's how many rows you're going to do it for. Alright, there's my stitch marker. That's my last stitch. So I'm going to knit my way all the way around to my other stitch marker, and then I will start again. Keep in mind you're going to, when you start a row, you're going to slip the first stitch so that you have a beautiful chain edging around the face. You can skip the step. It doesn't really make much difference. You're not going to be attaching anything. It's entirely up to you. If it would make it easier for you to keep up with your knit and purl at the end, that is fine. But I'm slipping it so that I have a beautiful chain right around that edge of the face. Okay. So knit our way over, and I'm going to show you the 2 rows. So this is the first row, alright, that you're going to do. And then I'll show you the next row, and then I'm going to tell you to pause the video, and I'm going to tell you to complete 90 rows, and then we will work on the next part, which will be connecting this hood to our turtleneck. And that is one of the more challenging parts of this pattern. And that is where you will need your stitch marker. Okay, and here we are on our last 10, and I'm going to do a knit purl. Oops. Knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, knit, and because I want that last peg to have a nice chain, knit it, because it's going to be a slip. Okay, so we're going to knit it, and then we're going to go back, and because our last one right here was a knit, we're going to start with a purl. Okay, so we're going to do a purl, knit on our 10. This is our row 2. Okay, and as you can see, we're going back the other direction. Now we're knitting flat. That's important. All right, this is the opening of our hood here. So knit purl to your stitch marker, then knit all the way around. Okay, I'm going to finish with my purl here. Then I'm going to knit all the way around. Okay, and then show you the last 10 pegs, and then I'm going to tell you to pause the video and complete your 90 rows back and forth, and then we'll move to the next section, because the next section is where it gets most difficult. That's where we're going to spend most of our time, because I have a special decrease that I'm doing. Because if you've done a 10 stitch blanket, you're going to be using that chain adding technique, okay, on this patterning, and I want you to keep that in mind. So there's some sock patterning technique in here, there's some 10 stitch blanket pack technique in here, and so I like to just incorporate all the techniques I know. Don't ever limit it to certain garments. Now you could have fun with this. You could do the seed stitch in a different color than the mane of the hat, the mane of the hood, and then when you do the edging around the bottom of the dicky area with the seed stitch around that neckline, then you can also switch up and do a color there and have the seed stitch in a particular color. Or you can do the turtleneck in one color and the hood in another color. It's up to you. Okay. I know I finished with a purl on this, so I'm going to start off with a knit, okay, to do my seed stitch. So knit, purl, you're going to do knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. Because we want that to be a slip, we're going to knit it, and that completes row 2. Now, in order to start your first row patterning again, which I didn't show you, you're going to slip that first stitch, okay? Alright, you're going to slip that first stitch, and you're going to purl and knit your way over. Okay, that's how you start your first row after you get initially started. You slip, and then you purl and knit, alright? And you're going to repeat the 2 rows. So you're just going to go back and repeat your 2 row thing for 90 rows. So that gets you started on this hood patterning. So keep in mind, seed stitch on the first 10 pegs and the last 10 pegs. Everything else is knit. Go for 90 rows. You'll need to tighten up your Kitchener cast on at some point. I usually do it about halfway through when I feel like the sides could meet. Again, I'll give you a link to the Kitchener on the PDF pattern so that you know how to do the Kitchener cast on and how to do a tightening of it. That would take a lot of time, and this pattern has a lot of concepts in there that I would suggest you know before doing this, because it's a large project. So what you want to do is you want to do the last 2 rows that I just showed you, a total of 90 times, back and forth, flat. Then about halfway through, if you want, go ahead and tighten up your cast on. And if you've not ever done that before, go check out the video of how to tighten up your cast on. And you want to snip your long tail when you're done, because you're going to have a particularly long tail, obviously, because this is a large loom. Okay, so get that done and get your turtleneck done, and then I'll show you how to combine the 2. And you'll definitely need a stitch holder, a particularly large one, so make sure you have the large stitch holder for moving this item to the smaller loom. Okay, alrighty, so pause the video, get all that done, and then I'll show you how to put it all together. As you can see, there is my turtleneck, and here is my hood. I've completed that much. Now we need to connect these 2. Alright, now we need our stitch holder, and yes, we're going to end up using this whole thing, so you know. Alright, you're going to find where your tail is. My tail is on this side. I'm going to go to the opposite side, which I'm going to start at my end, not my starting point. Alright, and what you're going to do is you're going to place all the stitches onto a stitch holder. Alright. You're going to do this all the way around, okay? And then I'm going to explain what to do. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and get all your stitches onto your stitch holder. Now this is, to me, the most challenging part because you can lose stitches in this process. Try not to. Be very careful. Because I do this a lot, it's not freaky to me. But be aware and be very careful keeping up with your stitches. It's important. Because if you do not, your garment can unravel, and you've already put a lot of time in at this point. Alright? So pause the video and get all your stitches on the stitch holder. And as you fill up this side, you're going to work it away around on the other side, or depending on what kind of stitch holder you have. You may need to use 2 stitch holders. If you need to use 2, that's fine. I usually end up using just 1 and cramming all the stitches onto 1. I mean, I've used 2 before, but I just don't find it to be as easy to deal with as just using 1. Okay? So pause the video, get all your stitches onto a stitch holder, and then I will show you how to add them to the smaller loom. So as you can see, I'm starting to pull the ones to the other side. So pause the video, get that much done, and we'll go from there. Okay, here is our hood on our stitch marker. Our stitch holder. Excuse me. Still kind of waking up this morning. Okay, well, we can't just put it in like it is. Alright. And here's the reason being. When you turn it inside out, the part of the hood that's going to show is this side. So, as this is maybe normally your starting point, you're not going to start here with here. You're going to do your starting point here when you add your stitches back. Okay. So, what you want to do is you want to stick your hand through and you want to grab it, alright? You're just going to tentatively grab it so that it's out of the way for the most part. And what you're going to do is you're going to start, so you picked up from your last peg, you're going to start putting on from your last peg here. So, what you're going to do is you're going to place that stitch onto the peg, alright? And you're going to do this for 23 pegs, alright? So there is 1, there's 2, and 3. Okay, so you're going to be putting on the stitches from your stitch holder onto the pegs. And yes, it's going to seem weird, okay, because you are doing this a little backwards, alright? But this is where I almost screwed up. I had done it the way you would think to do it, and I kept on looking at it, and I kept on being like, this does not look right, this does not look right. And I mentally went through, when I turned it right side out, what was going to show up, and I figured out, ooh, better not. So I had to take the hood that I put the stitches on the loom and take the stitches right back off and put them right back on the loom again. And sometimes you gotta do that. But I'll show you what I'm talking about when we get done putting the stitches on. but your hood should be flipped inside out and your negative side, when you flatten everything out, facing you. And that shows up in the written pattern, an image of that. Okay. So you're going to do 23 stitches. What there is here, let me explain this. If you're wanting to try to do this on another loom, I just didn't want to do the math. And this works out just right for me, and I already have the looms and everything. And normally I've been trying to provide options if you have other looms, but there's a 16 peg difference here. Alright, and I guess you'd want a 16 peg difference between your hood and your turtleneck loom. Alright, because you want to do 3 stitches on you'll want to do 3 stitches on 8 pegs, because there's a 16 peg difference. And if you want to find that out, of course, minus the larger loom from the smaller loom, and you want to see how much, if you want like a bigger hood than this, I like the hood you can drive in this thing and it's not going to get in the way of your vision. And that's usually an issue for me. I don't like things in the way of my vision when driving. But I find that this hood's just small enough that it keeps your head warm, but it also doesn't affect your vision if you're driving in it. So, okay. I should be getting close. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Maybe my stitches down. 20. 21, 22, 23. Okay. Now on the next 8 pegs, you're going to put a total of 3 stitches on each of the 8 pegs. Alright. Now, should be starting to be able to be folded right side. Which start to make it easier to add. Okay, so what do you want to do? You want to do your next empty peg and go 1, 2, and 3. That's your first. Alright? Alright, and then you're going to go to the next one. You go 1, and 2, and 3. That's peg 2. And then you're going to go 1, 2, and 3. And here's where you can lose a stitch, so be careful. So we have 3 pegs. Okay. Pick back up my 1, 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3. Alright, let's see how many pegs we got. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 more pegs with 3 stitches on each. Okay, so 1 and 2. And 3. And last one to do this with. Gonna go and I find the stitches can get a little tighter once you start getting down to the last one. There's 1. And this is the most tedious part, I'm not gonna lie. Be careful not to lose a stitch, alright? This is where you can lose a stitch, not realize it. Now I guess you could choose to bind off and kind of weave in this in, but I wouldn't do it. And 1 more. 3. Alright. So, there's your 8 pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pegs with 4 stitches that should be on it. 3 were the ones you just added, and the one that was originally there. And then you're going to add all the way back. Alright. And so we're going to finish adding our way back. And this will be the most complicated spot, in my personal opinion, on the whole thing. Everything else is, I mean, the decreasing, if you've seen the written, the decrease sounds like it's complicated, but when I explain it, it's not, okay? When you see it in motion, it's not, and you could probably simplify it, but it will look weird on the edge. Okay, and the reason why I did a single ribbing is on the turtleneck area is because it looks the same on both sides. So the trick is to kind of get most of this looking the same on the both sides, and I realized the hood doesn't have that going on, and you have to kind of keep up with it, but the hood can be more decorative if you want. I mean, it's a pretty straight panel, and you don't have to worry about it after you get it attached. You just have to worry about what you want showing when you flip it, and just keep in mind you want your right side facing inside the loom like I've got here. So this is a basic pattern. The rib stitch is going to help with the turtleneck. That's what makes it fit like a turtleneck, is the rib stitch. And what makes it kind of fit all in one is the fact that it is a rib stitch, so it can slip over any head size. It may be a little snugger for like an adult male, but I don't think an adult male is going to be wearing this. You kind of look like a knight if you're a male wearing this. It's kind of funny. Everyone trying on the hats around on this design around here, but it does fit a man's head. I just don't see a man wanting to walk around looking like a knight, which is what you'd look like. Amusing, though. Okay. We are almost done. Isn't that awesome? And we have a problem. I've got a missing stitch. Where is it? And here's how you know you got a missing stitch somewheres. And no, I didn't miscalculate. Alright, now there's a stitch missing. Do you see it? Let's go find it. Okay. I see that 2 ended up here. And I don't know how I managed that, but 2 ended up on this single one here. Now, I would not normally suggest this, but that is very close to your starting point. You could lift these up and move that over. Alright. If you're that close, if you're 1 off, you'll be fine. Alright. So I'm going to move that over. I didn't drop a stitch. I'm so happy. Alright. Anyway, as you can see, if I hadn't done that, there would be a single stitch on every single one. Okay. So, let me find my hand, tighten that up. Alright. So, normally I wouldn't say do that. If you have a double stitch somewhere up in here, you're going to need to take them off and put them back on. Normally I don't have issues. But that was weird. 2 right there. So it ended up getting moved over 1. It's okay. It can work. It's not going to be too dramatically different to have it over 1 peg. But as you can see, it would work just the way I said. 23, 8 with 3 stitches, and 23 back. And as you can see, what is facing me is my negative. Alright, and when we open it up, there is my beautiful knit stitch. Alright, so that's how you attach. You take off the big loom and you attach it to the small loom. And now we're going to do 1 more row. Okay, so we're going to pick up our working yarn. Okay, and we're going to remember what we started with. Okay, and I think I'm going to go ahead and knot my tail to my working yarn, so that in no way will it ever come unraveled. And I tend to do this sometimes. Okay, now, just a couple of half knots will do, nothing special. Okay, keep up with your rib stitch. You start with a knit and go into a purl. So you're going to knit 2 together, like that. Then you're going to purl 2 together. And then you're going to knit 2 together, and you're going to purl 2 together. And you can do that all the way over to your 8 pegs. Okay. You want to continue that lovely rib stitch you've been doing with your turtleneck. Alright. Okay. Just so happens that our first one is going to be knit 4 together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to purl 4 together, and this can be a challenge, but mostly what you want to do is you want to get that working yarn up through there, and you pull you a big loop of it. Okay, and then what you want to do is you want to just toss over each individual one, and your big loop keeps you from losing your stitch you just made. So then you pick up your stitch and you put it back on the loom. And that's how you do a purl 4 together. And then knit 4 together. And then purl 4 together. Put that loop back on. And knit 4 together, and then purl 4 together, take a big loop, then knit 4 together, and your last purl 4 together. Alright. Okay, then you're just going to go back to knit 2 together, purl 2 together. So there's your knit 2, purl 2, all the way over. And then when you finish the end of this row, you're going to do 4 rows of ribbing. Okay. And then we're going to set up our stitch markers for our breaking in half to finish making the dicky section of the Hoodic. There's your knit 2 together, purl 2. And I'll tell you to pause the video. Now from here, I mean, the decreasing may confuse you, but I mean, you could probably simplify it if you want. I choose to try to continue with my stitch patterning and making it look good and everything. But it's entirely up to you. I mean, you can do what you want with it. On the decreasing, you're just trying to decrease and keep a chain on the outer edge because you're going to do like a 10 stitch blanket and be working on another edging. So this is kind of a modular piece, but it's really nice. It's worth it, I think. The look is really nice and worth it. So, and knit 2 together, and purl. I mean, you could always do all these separate and everything and sew them together, but I always like to working modularly. It allows for more give when you go to wear the item. Okay, that is your hardest part. It's done. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to pause the video and you want to do your ribbing like you've been doing with your turtleneck. You're going to do it for 4 rows. And then we'll come back and set up our stitch markers so that we know what is our front half and what is our back half. And then we'll go from there. We've done our 4 rows, and we need to set our stitch markers. So what we want to do is we want to count over 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And what I've done is kind of divided the loom in half. But I got an odd number, and I didn't want an odd number. I wanted an even number. And so I adjusted it to where I believe I had more in the front and less in the back. Okay, so there's 14, and then we're going to do on peg 41. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. And we're going to add a stitch marker here. Send it through the back. All right. Which, if I recall, should be 14 from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14 from here. So if you want to, you can do 14 and 14, but in the written pattern, I tell you exactly which peg number the stitch marker goes on. But I divided it in half, and then I readjusted it to where it would be more on the front, a little less on the back, and it would be an even number on both sides. So if you're trying to do this on another loom, divide in half and go from there and kind of figure out what you want to do from there. Alright, so from here we need to get our starting point set up, okay? So what we want to do is we want to knit purl our way to the end. Okay. And because this is a purl, I'm going to switch it to a knit. because I want it to have a nice beautiful chain on the edge. And the reason being is we're going to be doing like a 10 stitch. We're going to be doing a 10 stitch paneling that goes around the whole edge, and you're going to be doing it like a 10 stitch, and it ends up having a really nice finish around the neckline. Also, something to keep in mind, if you wanted to skip the hoodie part, you could make yourself just a nice little dickie or a turtleneck that you can tuck within a shirt and not have to wear a full-on turtleneck. Okay, so just to make sure that I'm doing my number of rows correctly before I start showing you decreased, we are going to do 2 rows of I believe one that way and one that way, but I want to make sure. Hold on. Yes, so that makes we're going to row 7 on this. So what you want to do is we're going to do 1 row this way and 1 row back, and what you're going to find on the patterning is you're going to be doing approximately 3 rows between decreases. Okay, I just wanted to make sure before I tell you my written pattern, because sometimes I can just go with the flow of whatever I'm doing at the time. So we're slipping that first one. I'm not going to touch it. We're going to go a knit purl all the way to the other side. Where the stitch marker is, because we're now working flat. So we're forgetting this back half here. Alright. Not going to be bothering with it. And once I show you how the decreases work, this is where you're going to want to follow the patterning of what you're doing. And I believe there's 3 rows in between each decrease, okay? And that gives you a nice slow decrease, and unlike the back paneling, it's not going to be so many rows in between, unlike this one. Okay. So you're going to continue that ribbing is what you're up to, and you're going to continue it back and forth as you decrease. Now, because I wanted a nice smooth decrease into the rib stitch, there's a reason for the funky decreasing rather than just straight out decreasing, which would be easier, I know. Alright. Purl. And then, of course, we want our stitch marker peg to be a knit every time. Okay, so we've reached that side, which is our first row on that one, and then we're going to go around and stop. So we're going to purl knit our way after we slip that first stitch, because we want to develop a beautiful chain that we can pick up later and work. So that we have a beautiful edging for later. Again, the hardest part, I swear it, is the attaching the hood. This I don't think is as hard, because once you get the hang of how the decrease works, not difficult. And you can always simplify the decrease if you choose to. I chose to do it as cleanly as possible, but mostly the idea is 3 rows decrease on each side, 3 rows decrease on each side. So something to keep in mind. Alright, if you're wanting to simplify this for yourself, and make sure that you have a chain so that you can a chain edge. Alright, here we go. We're almost there. Then I'll show you your first decrease, and I'll explain it. And knit. There's your stitch marker. Alright, our first decrease, and let me make sure I'm doing this correctly on my first decrease. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to, I'm going to loosen this up a little. we're going to lift up. We're going to slip that first stitch, lift up this one, then lift up our purl, place the knit stitch under the purl. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to move that slip stitch over one. Okay, and then you're going to slip that and you're going to purl two together. Alright, now what just happened there was that we had a knit and we had a purl here. Well, when your purl is on your decrease, that's when you're going to lift it up and go under the purl. Alright, keep that in mind. Alright, now we're going to work our way over. And if you're reading the pattern, you'll know which to do. That was a lift the knit, place under the purl, move your slip stitch in, and purl two together. And I show an image of it so you know which is which in the patterning, the written pattern, because it would take too much film footage when I've still got an edging to do to show you each and every decrease. So you're going to have to trust yourself and go off on your own after I show you how to do what these decreases are, okay? We're going to stop here because we're at the last three. Now this is a knit, purl, and then a knit. So what you can do is you can lift up that last stitch, you can lift up the next one, you can place that purl stitch on top of the knit. Alright, I mean on top of the knit, because that was a purl on top of the knit, and move your last stitch over. Okay, and then you're going to knit the two together and then knit one. Alright, now here's where what you want to do is, if I recall correctly, after you get done doing that, then you're going to do 3 rows and you're going to have the alternate decreasing. Okay, so I'm going to show you those 3 rows and the decreasing that's going to happen a little differently, and then I'm going to tell you to go forth, follow the pattern, the written pattern on your decrease, but if I recall, it's 3 rows in between your decreasing, and you want to keep up with what's purl and what's knit. Alright, so we're going to slip our first stitch and we're going to knit and purl. Alright, we're going to do this for 3 rows. So here's our first row. And then after you decrease to a certain point, you're going to notice that it changes up to where you just decrease and then you bind off. That is where I will return to finish this point and then show you the start of the second point. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on this decreasing section because there's leeway. There is. You can figure out, you just need that end peg to keep moving in and giving you that chain stitch. So you can just decrease regularly if you like, but you will have weirdness that shows up around the edge. If you don't mind that, then you can do the simplified method, but this makes it clean. Alright. And then here's row 2. And what I like to do is try to end up on the same side that you work with every time when you're decreasing. And knit that last one, slip. Always remember to knit the last peg. Alright, this is our last row, and then we're going to decrease again. I'm going to show you how that's done. You may want to try to write it down your own way that's going to work on how to do these decreases like I just did. Watch it several times on how I do these decreases. Check your written pattern for the photo showing how I do this. several times if you want to follow the decrease method, or you want to just do your own decrease method. But I'm trying to follow with my rib stitch, and that my rib stitch is going to show up on the negative side, and so any knit stitch is going to look like a purl on the other side, so you know. If you do a whole bunch of knit two together, then you'll have little single stitches popping up every other decrease. If you don't mind that, just go for that then. But pattern will show you when to decrease. Okay. And here we go. Now, we need to show you how to do a decrease. Now, my last stitch was a purl before that last one that'll be slipped. And because it's a purl, it can just be moved over to the next one, which is a knit stitch. And move that over one. Slip that first one. Knit two together. Okay, so there's your decrease on the next setup, and it's going to flip-flop back and forth. Every other decrease is going to be the first one, and then every other decrease is going to be this one. So you're going to be flipping back and forth between the two decreases that I start with. So after we do 3 rows after this one, you'll do the first type of decrease that you saw me do, and then after you do 3 rows, you'll do the next type of decrease that we're doing on this section. And you're just going to keep going back and forth, and that's how the decreasing works. And if you know what your knit and purls look like on both sides too, is helpful. Again, I'll show you this decrease, and then I'm gonna leave you to it to decrease your way down. And then I will show you the last couple of rows to finish the point off, because it does change up at some point. Okay, we're stopping at just before the last 3. All right, and you'll notice that there's a purl and then a knit, and this decrease has got to go under the purl. Okay, so what I like to do is lift up that, hold it, go ahead and lift up that last stitch. All right, place the last stitch on, because there's an awful lot of tension here, and oops, you'll figure out the smoother way for you to do this, but I hold the stitch. You can put it on a stitch holder if you like. I don't usually bother, it's a single stitch. You're going to lift up that purl stitch, move it over, place that knit stitch underneath the purl, put your purl back down. Okay, and then purl together. Now you can use your stitch holder if you do not feel comfortable doing it that way. Alright, and then knit that last stitch. Okay, then it's slip, and then go back and do 3 rows, and then do your first decrease type, which is first one I showed you. Then do 3 rows, and then do your second decrease type, and then do 3 rows, and you continue that patterning until you're down to one of these last few pegs, and I'll return to the video at that point. So go ahead and pause the video and get your decreasing down to where it changes over to where it isn't doing the special decrease, it's just a decrease and then a bind off. So get it down to that point, and I'll show you, and then I'll show you how to start the back half of the hoodic. Okay, what you do once you get down to those 8 stitches, then you are to decrease, and that last decrease is pretty easy. Move the last pegs on the outside in one. Okay, all Alright. And I believe this is a knit 2 together. So knit 2 together, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, and purl 2 together. Alright, we're going to bind off. So I'm going to knit the next peg, take it back 1, toss the bottom loop over. Kind of do this loose because you're going to want to bring these loops up when you go to do your 10 stitch area. So you're going to lightly bind that off. Toss over and toss over. Snip the end and pull through. And there you can see you have chains on the side, as you can see, and then you have chains through here, and that'll make it easier to do the 10 stitching that I want to do. So that's how you finish the front half. Now we need to start the second half. Let me review my pattern real quick so that I'm not going on a spur of a whim thing like I'm normally just kind of go with the flow of how I'm feeling that day. So let me go study my pattern real quick for the back half, and then we'll go from there. Alright, you're going to make a slip knot, and then you're going to put that on peg 15. That's what it says in the pattern. Okay. And I do believe this is a... I'm going to make sure what I'm doing. I believe it's a knit. Okay. Looks like a knit. Alright, knit, purl all the way around. Okay, so knit, purl all the way to the other side. This just kind of gets you started. I find this is a little faster for me when I'm not working at a table but working in my lap. But I find the table gives me the option of a cleaner filming. Okay. And knit that last one. Because we're doing the slip thing, so slip that first stitch. And knit and purl your way to the other side, and make sure you knit that last stitch over there too. So your first 2 rows are pretty straight forward. Okay. Now, the decreases work a lot similar to the other ones on the other side. So you'll see a similarity on this when you go to do it, okay? So naturally you're going to slip that one. That's a purl stitch that's going to be going on top of a knit stitch. So you know you're just going to decrease it over, move that stitch over. Let me get that end out of the way. Okay. Now, what you're going to do, knit 2 together. Then you're going to knit, purl all the way around, purl, knit all the way around, and then stop before the last 3 pegs. Alright. Now, again, you can use this video where you skip the hood section altogether. You can make yourself a really nice dicky. Which I do not understand why that term came to be as it was, but that is what it is. You can go research why in the heck a partial turtleneck that can just kind of be for show at the top of a shirt is called a dicky. I have no clue. Okay. Now, because we know that's a pearl, we know that that has to get lifted and that has to go up under it. So I'm going to just lift this up. Then lift up my pearl stitch, hold it, put down my knit stitch, then put my pearl stitch back over the top of it, and then put my last stitch there. And then, because we knew we put it under the pearl, we're going to purl it together. Again, very similar to the other style on this side. It's just flipped. Alright. Okay. What have I got going on here? Alright. It uses a full skein, so you want to talk about a usefulness of a full skein. Okay, so slip the first stitch, purl knit for 3 rows like we have been doing, but we're doing it on the back side. So go ahead and pause the video, get 3 rows done of the purl knit. Remember to always knit that last stitch at the end and slip it when you're starting the row. Alright, that hasn't changed. We're wanting to keep that beautiful chain so that we have the option to do the 10 stitch at the end to do a nice finishing touch on it. Okay, let's go ahead and pause the video, get 3 rows done, which should end you right back here, and then I will show you the rest of the techniques that's used to complete the back half. Okay, so we're at our next kind of decrease, because we know this is a purl and that is a knit. So we know we want to lift these up, hold that purl stitch, place that knit stitch down, place the purl stitch down, and your slip stitch. Naturally slip, purl the 2 together. Very similar to the other side, just reversed. Alright, so now you're going to knit purl to just before your last 3. And you're going to decrease faster on the back side. You don't need it to be as long, okay, because most shirts don't do V's in the back. They're higher up. So you don't need it so much, is what I have found. So we're going to decrease this a lot faster. Instead of it being every 3 rows, we're going to do it every other row. Okay, so like this is your decrease, and then you're going to knit your way back, and then you're going to decrease again, and then work your way back, and then decrease again. As I said, the back half is going to go a lot faster. Alright, there's our last 3. So what you want to do, lift that last peg up, last stitch up, the next stitch, place that stitch on top, Then place your last stitch on the peg here. Knit 2 together and then knit 1. Okay. And remember those decreases like that. All right. So now you're going to knit, purl, knit, purl all the way around like a normal row. Okay, here's where every other row is going to be decreased. So we just did a normal row. Now we're going to decrease again. So lift, lift, because that's a purl. And we're decreasing onto a knit. So remember that. You can just move it over. If it's decreasing onto a knit. If it's decreasing onto a purl, then you have to do a lift. Alright, slip that first stitch. Knit 2 together. Work your way around to just before the last 3 stitches. We'll decrease again. I'm going to show you the decrease one more time. I'm going to tell you to run with it. And finish decreasing down to 8 stitches. Do the same decrease thing that we did over here. And then bind off just like we did on the other side. Okay, so once I tell you to go for it and follow the pattern, finish up this section, and then I will show you how to do the 10 stitch section, which puts a beautiful trim around the edge and ties in the hood. Alright, and here we are decreasing around a purl stitch. So I'll lift up all 3. Hold the purl, place the knit stitch onto the peg, place the purl stitch back on top, and then place the last stitch down. Then you're going to purl 2 together and knit. Slip the first, work your way around, decrease, work your way back, decrease, work your way back, and then when you get down to 8, decrease the outer ones in just like we did over here, and then bind off. Alright, so finish your back half, and then when we come back, we're going to start the 10 stitch area. I'm going to show you how that's done so that you have a beautiful finish around your edging. Alright, because this is kind of dull, and it's really not wide enough, and it doesn't tie in the seed stitch as well. And so when you put the seed stitch around the edge, it really ties it in. So finish the back, and then we're almost done. I'll show you how to do the 10 stitch thing around the edge of the Hoodic, and then we'll be done. So we're close. Finish the back, and then we'll get started on the next section. Alright, we have completed our Hoodic for the most part. So you can pull everything through, and when you do, there you have it. Now I would suggest, because you're not going to be messing with this, go ahead and weave in that and that. But there is your basic Hoodic. Now it's time to do that beautiful trimming around. Okay, and I like to start on the back because it's not going to be seen. Alright, and what I want to start off with is, where's my yarn? Okay, I I'm going to start off with a slip. I'm going to actually do a chain cast on of 10. So go back. All right. Okay. To do the chain cast on of 10, it allows you to be able to sew easy enough everything. So I prefer it for this particular section. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and place that. Oops. Make sure your working yarn doesn't get up in there like that. Okay. And I believe that's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I stop. Okay. So I've done my chain cast on 10. You can do a regular cast on. You ain't got to do anything fancy. I just find that it's easier to see when I'm ready to actually go in and sew it together. Alright, now it doesn't matter which side you choose to do. You've got a rib stitch on both sides, alright, and your seed stitch looks the same on both sides. Okay, so you don't have to worry about which side is which, alright? I'm just going to let you know. But I'm going to start working on the bottom corner here. Here, the very corner. Alright. I'm going to add that stitch to the loom. Alright, now that gets me started. Okay, now I'm going to slip that first one and I'm going to knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and I'm going to knit all those together. Alright, and you always want to knit these together because you don't want a ridge showing, and I find that keeps a ridge from showing if you knit it. Alright, now that we've done that, you're going to slip it, and because your last one was a purl, you're going to knit, purl, because we're doing a seed stitch. Alright, knit, purl, knit, purl. Remember to knit your last edge because I like a smooth edge. So I want to continue that chain edging because I did it around here too. It keeps a nice beautiful edging. Okay, so the next step is you're going to add in a chain, and we're going to work our way up and down to the front point. So what you want to do is you want to find where your next chain is, and this looks like the next chain. So what you want to do is you want to find the one closest to the outer edge. And since we're doing the right side, I think I'll do it. You can try doing both, but I think the 1/2 inch gauge pegs are a little wider. So I'm just choosing 1/2, but depending on which half you choose, stay consistent with it. If you choose to pick up the back half of the chain, always pick up the back half of the chain. Alright? If you pick up the front, always pick up the front half of the chain. If you're going to do both, consistently do both. All right, that's important. All right. Now, we're working our way back. So knit, purl, because our last one was a knit on that one. Knit, purl, knit, purl. Sorry, this is just really awkward. I'm used to sitting in my lap and doing this. Knit, purl, and knit 2 together. Then you're going to slip the first one, knit, purl your way over, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and always knit that last stitch. When you go to work your way back up again, there is your next chain. Again, I'm choosing to do the same side. Put that on the peg. All right. And you're just going to continue this back and forth and adding when you go back. So you add from the chain when you go back. Things will get a little fishy, as you can see. Your chain kind of vanishes right about here. That's the last chain you'll see. What I suggest doing is pulling from here and pulling from here. So 2 straight loops right there, and then you work back into chains, okay? So those are the only 2 sections that you'll run into where you're like, okay, that's not a chain. Hit them though, okay? Like they are a chain. That one and that one. Then go back to chain and work your way down here. And you want to try to get as close to the middle as possible. So when you get down to here, you'll want to pick up that last one right there, which looks like a little notch. And then you'll want to pick up that and that. Alright? And then you'll want to stop. Alright? And come back to the video. So, add in all the way down until you get to here. About your middle stitch there. Okay? And then we're going to do a corner. Which, if you've done a 10 stitch before, you've done a corner, this isn't going to be too difficult for you. It's a short row system. And you do your short row, and then you go back and you're going to do the rest of it, okay? So, pause the video, get yourself down to this front corner. I'll show you how to do the corner, and then tell you to go back and do the rest of it, and do the other corner, and then you're done, sew it up, kind of thing. Okay, so get to your corner, get to this point, and then we'll go from there. I have completed all the way down my one side, as you can see, and it's connected, looking nice. Alright, now I'm at my point, okay, and you can see I've reached my middle point. And what I want to do is a series of short rows to make a point, okay? So here's what I want to do. I'm going to knit, purl, and stop just before the last peg. Alright. Okay. I'm going to wrap and turn. Then I'm going to knit and purl my way over. And always knit that last peg. Alright, then I'm going to knit and purl till just before my last wrap and turn. Okay. Wrap and turn, and if you'll recall, my last one was a knit. Now I'm going to start with a purl. Purl knit my way over. You got to keep up with this, alright, because you're continuing that seed stitch, which can be sometimes a challenge. Alright. Then slip that last stitch as you've been doing and start with your knit purl. Stop just before the last wrap and turn. Wrap and turn, and then knit purl back. And you're going to continue this until you get down to here. Now that means that every other peg when you come back after your wrap and turn will be a purl. Like this next time it'll be a purl since we did a knit. Okay. And if you lose track, it's easy to pick up again too. See, there's my knit. And then I know I need to wrap and turn. And so I know I need to start with a purl, because the last thing I did was a knit. Knit purl your way back. Then knit purl your way over to a wrap and turn on the next peg. Wrap and turn, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, slip that first one, knit, purl, knit, wrap and turn, purl, knit, purl, knit, slip that first one, knit, purl, wrap and turn, knit, purl, that last peg, slip, knit, wrap and turn, purl, knit, slip and wrap, and knit. Alright, now you have finished all the wraps and turns at this point. Now you're ready to start adding back in your wraps and turns. So your knit, and then you purl, and knit that last peg. Then you're going to knit 1, purl 2 together, knit, purl, knit, and knit, purl, knit 2 together, and purl, knit, purl. And you just continue this all the way until you're back to all single stitches sitting on those pegs. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is the last section I will show you, and then I'm going to tell you to go off and finish up. Okay, this is my last row to complete my point at the front, and you're going to do the same thing when you get to the back bottom center point as we just did. It's not going to be any different. Okay. And knit 2 together. Alright, and there you can see is your point. Okay, so you're going to work your way back, and then you're going to add in again, and you're going to start doing like you've been doing. Okay, okay, and you'll want to go to your bottom, find your next chain, bring it up, and then start going as you normally would. So you have 3 more chains here, and then you start working your way up. There's a couple here. There's like not a chain per se, but there's a spot there you can pull up and a spot there you can pull up. Then you have your chain, and you're going to work your way all the way around. And remember, you're going to have 2 non-chains here to pick up. And you work all your way back here, and you work your way to the middle, and you do the exact same thing that we just did. Okay, and then you'll notice you have a couple of more chains to do. Do them, add those in, bind off, and then just sew together. And because you did a chain cast on, it should be easy to see where you need to sew together. So you're going to sew it together, and that is how you make a hoodic. Remember to weave in your ends. Okay, and you are done. Once you go around to the other side, repeat the point, and bind off, sew together, and you have it. And that's how you make a hoodic.